Hangout on air is live. Yeah, I remember I was playing with that bandwidth button because of the delay in my video, and
Oh,
it gave
okay,
you an
yeah.
option to disable HD, and I didn't know what that meant. But I said, well, I'll click it anyway. And next thing I know, it says session terminated, and it closed me out. And I wasn't sure if
Oh,
you got closed out before that happened or after that happened. So that may be what knocked you out.
okay, okay.
So I was just telling Venita I didn't know if I was going to have to like set up another hangout real quick or But when I tried to come back in, it let me back in. So I think we're okay. I kind of have one eye open on our page to see if anybody else is having a problem getting in, and I don't see anything. So it is us. So I don't know, but Leonie should be here. We arranged this time to suit her schedule. So I'm going to be mad if she doesn't come. Oh, wow.
I was going to be mad if I couldn't get in here tonight because I read all Nicole's questions and her summary, and I done read everything, and I'm all ready. That's why I said, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. I bought my
I know that's right, Venita.
I'm not playing, Nicole. No. Not tonight. That's why I got there early, just to prepare for mess. I got my iPad here.
I know that's right.
I'm not trying to play like that tonight.
Kim B has joined the video call.
Hi, everybody.
Kim.
Hi, Kim.
You. Welcome, welcome.
Hi. Hi, Venita.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Are we good? No, I can see Venita.
I see you. Can you hear us still?
Yes.
Okay.
Where's Kim?
You were frozen for a second there.
Oh.
You can't see Kim?
I see Kim. That's the devil working tonight. That's the devil. And I'm not trying to do it.
Here's Leonie.
Hello.
Hey, Leonie.
I was telling everybody I was going to be mad at you if you didn't come. So I'm glad to see you, Leonie.
I'm glad to be here. I'm so glad that you guys agreed to move the time. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, we want to do whatever we can. Try to accommodate everybody's busy schedules.
Yeah.
Oh. So I guess maybe, Nicole, this may be it. I know Gio Moses saw the invitation and whatnot. But I think she said she was coming, but I don't think we should wait.
Okay. All right, no problem. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Jackson Wilson. I am joining from College Station, Texas. I was going to say Houston. And welcome to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. Well, let's start by introducing ourselves. Michelle, would you start us off, please?
Hi, everybody. I am Michelle Odom in Brooklyn, New York. This is our book. And whatever happened to everybody holding up their book to show they were a legitimate group? We just don't do that.
Was that a thing at one point?
All right. All right. Well, welcome, welcome.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Michelle. Um, Venita, would you please introduce yourself as well?
Yes, I will, Nicole. Good evening, everyone. My name is Venita Walker, and I'm joining you from Cromwell, Connecticut. Welcome.
All right. Okay, Kim, the lovely and creative Kim. If you would also
Hi,
introduce yourself.
I'm Kim, and I'm in New York, and I'm so happy to be here.
All right.
The book, Kim.
And sweetly Leonie.
Huh?
Do you have
What
the
you say?
book? Do you have the book?
I have to read my books online. Do you want to see a picture of the online? I don't know. What you need? What you need?
No, thank you.
You've gone digital, huh? I know that's right. All right, sweet Leonie.
Yes, that would be me. My name is Leonie, and I join you from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Here's my copy of the book to prove it's legit.
All right. So we've introduced all the women tonight. I'm so happy to see you, Venita, and everyone, and Michelle. This book is so good. All right. So,
Oh, you know what? I did want to mention to you all that link that I sent you that has all those books on it
Mhm.
includes a copy of At the Dark End of the Street. So
ah,
for Nicole and Leonie, did you read At the Dark End of the Street with us, Kim?
No, no, I didn't. That was the only one I missed.
Okay, so it's somewhere in that link. Yeah.
oh, all right. Oh, we'll be accessing.
In
Thank you
fact,
for that,
maybe I'll
Michelle.
try to pull it out and post that for y'all who like reading digital information.
All right. Well, we are.
I'm just an old-fashioned girl.
You like the print text. So we are reading, this is session 10, and we are reading Nicole Dennis-Benn's Here Comes the Sun. And tonight we are discussing chapters 8 and 9. Before we dive into the text, let's go ahead and look ahead. And just a reminder that next week we have a break, February 20th. And then our next presenter, February 27th, is the wonderful Michelle. And so she will be facilitating. So were there any additional announcements or anything else that needed to be said, Michelle?
Yeah, let's look at this whole, because I think Leonie has some other dates that are going to be problematic. So, Leonie, you are on also for March 6th.
Yeah.
This.
Are you going to be able to do that one? If we change the time, could you do that one?
Yes. If we change the time, I can do that one.
5:30?
Yes, 5:30 would be perfect.
Okay. And then you're switched with Nicole for March 20th.
Yes.
Now that one do you need that one to be at 5:30 also, or could that be 6:30?
Let me just check. Yes, that's the last session of, March 20th. Give me one moment. Nope, I can return to our usual time by then.
Okay, I think that's it.
All right.
So we're saying next week is 5:30 again?
Next week is nothing.
Next week is a break.
Oh, that's right.
And then
I got you.
And then I'll facilitate the following week on February 27th at 6:30.
Okay.
Okay. Unless to do that February 27th at 5:30.
Yeah, I would love to be here if which a 5:30 start would be what would be allowable for me. So if people can make that work and are willing to make that work, that would be great.
Okay, are those okay with you, Nicole?
Oh yeah, 5:30 is plenty of time.
Kim?
That's fine for me.
Venita?
I'm flexible.
Okay,
great.
So February 27th at 5:30 with Michelle, March 6th at 5:30 with Leonie, and by the time we get back to March 20th, we'll go back to the 6:30.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute.
All right.
Wait. There's also March 13th with Nicole as the facilitator. So Leonie, you're just saying if we could do all of that at 5:30, it would.
Yes, yeah. March 13th is the last week that I would need accommodation for.
Okay.
No problem.
All right. Okay. 5:30. All right, I'm done.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly go through the summary, and then I kind of realized I think I put a few too many questions here, so we'll just go through and just what's relevant, and we'll leave the rest. I don't know what I was thinking, but okay, so in the summary states, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have these other earbuds in. Okay. All right. So what's so significant about chapters 8 and 9 is that they pull the reader deeper into the center of Margot and Thandi's interiority. Interestingly, once the reader gets there, we discover that we are, in fact, it seems, in the midst of a vortex. And in this vortex, to use a Jungian grammar, Dennis-Benn seems to clearly employ a both and logic, as well as archetypes that tease the reader's palate without compromising the characters' complex interiority. It is not until we reach the end of the chapters that we recognize what Dennis-Benn has done. She's forced a conversation about those hidden pockets of respectability rooted in Black feminisms sometimes. This makes the reader not just consider how coloniality remains mapped into the bodies of women like Thandi and Margot, Dennis-Benn's both and logic, also cautions against reading the characters through a first world lens. It's safe to say that Thandi and Margot's vortex will not allow the Black feminist reader to bypass difficult conversations about sex work and/or sex work, achievement, ambition, Black exceptionalism, and most importantly, the practice of diaspora. Parsing these subjects allows us to discover an unevenness, asymmetry, noting that nothing is as it seems. We learn that Thandi and Margot are both tricksters and heroines. They are mirrors, spoiled characters, shapeshifters, and sisters whose shadows perform an interesting ritualistic dance in those chapters. But be clear, this is not your average novelization of sibling rivalry, like a Shakespearean drama turned inside out or maybe outside in, I'm not sure. The budding tension or the building tension between those two characters seem to express that one ideology, mindset, shapeshifter, or changing woman has to go. Who will have blood on her? Okay, so the questions. Michelle, would you start us off with number one? And then, we could just, A, B, it doesn't matter. Just however we can do this. I put too many questions here.
Okay. The 8th chapter remains true to biblical symbolism, as Dennis-Benn indeed establishes a new order. New beginnings are on the horizon for both Margot and Thandi. Let's look closely at Margot's meeting with Alfonso, her John. During their meeting, Margot not only receives the much anticipated, though shocking, call to adventure, but she also learns more about her positionality. As legal scholar and critical race feminist Patricia J. Williams explains in The Alchemy of Race and Rights, positionality is not simply where one stands, but it is also where one is made to stand. What a way to learn such a powerful concept. A, what are your thoughts about the lunch scene? Please parse the power dynamics at play there. B, in what ways does the scene suggest how coloniality is continually mapped onto Black women's bodies in general and Margot's body in particular? I'm thinking about the little pieces with the waiter directing his questions to the man at the table. I don't know. It was, it was certainly a shocking experience for Margot. I mean, I think in terms of power dynamics, Alfonso had the power. He had the power to decide whether or not to give her this job that she had been angling for a long time and felt she deserved. He had the power to first of all, command her attention in that space that made her uncomfortable. Being seen in public with a white man. I don't know. Let me think about it a little more. Let me hear what somebody else thought about that scene.
For me, there's a lot there, like around coloniality. So I don't know where that echo's coming from, but it's awful. Margot makes the point of saying that Alfonso is Jamaican like she is. And it's the first time, in reading that, it's the first time that I was just like, really? Even though I know Jamaica to be a place to be so-called racially diverse, there is no way to compare the experience of a white Jamaican to that of a Black Jamaican and say that there's a whole lot of commonality. They don't even talk the same. So it's just ridiculous. And also, the thought that I had in my head is that if you're a white Jamaican, like say in 2018, this many years after slavery has ended, in a country that's like 95% Black, there's like a whole story there, right? Around how that happens. Because that is some deliberate work. Yes. For you to stay the racial minority after that many years of being on the island, and you're as Jamaican as everybody else, I don't think so. So there's that piece that's there. And yes, the kind of like traditional patriarchal stuff around the waiter talking to Alfonso. But also there was the kind of waiting, the waiting that Margot had. There was just like this, I felt like her holding on to her holding on to this idea that Alfonso said I love you like in the middle of an orgasm as though it was a real thing is just this weird. I mean, it just shows kind of like a desperation because it doesn't seem very logical to think that this is a genuine expression. Like, I don't think that most women would trust an I love you in the middle of an orgasm. And yet it was like she was pinning her hopes on this. So it just really goes to show, for me, it was demonstrative of the kind of power differences that exist between these two. Even though we know from what's been demonstrated so far that Margot is more worldly, she's more mature, she's smarter than he is, she knows his business better than he does. So it's just a sense that, but all of those things don't matter because of her gender and her race. So those are some of the things that I saw show up at that lunch.
Oh, good. Yeah, great responses. Anyone else?
I think that a couple of things that stand out for me is that I'm wondering if she knows that the I love you in the orgasm was just passion, and I'm just wondering if anybody else felt like when she got to her mother, she started weaving that tail thicker. Like all of a sudden, it was a lie she was willing to believe because she needed to get her mother's approval with it. And then the other thing is that I'm starting to be a little disappointed in Margot, and I understand this is a African American woman speaking. But I just felt like, the first time she meets Alfonso and he takes her into the conference room and he just whips it out and she's okay. I just felt like, really, chick? I don't know. I don't understand that. I just felt like, I don't know.
I believe you have to know the history of the island in order to understand a lot of things. And unless you know the history of the island, you can't really imagine. It will help you to understand more. We are in America. We think a little differently. But even today in 2018, and me being married to a Jamaican man for 30-something years now, and being very closely tied to his family and their tradition and the history of the island, their train of thought is a lot different, a lot of folks, especially among the poor folk. That Black curse is passed down, and I know it's a challenge for us to even think about that. Compared to where we are as women in our thought process today, but it's a little bit different. As far as, I think Margot tries to convince herself of a lot of things, because you pretty much have to convince yourself of a lot of things in order to be able to move her values. And I still think she has them way down here to do what she needs to do. The day Alfonso bent her over in that conference room over the table, then right at that moment, that's where she lied. So the whole thing about, him giving her a promotion, that's not her purpose. That was never her purpose. Her purpose that day It was bam. And when he bent her over the table, remember, it made her faceless. Absolutely faceless. So Margot is really hoping on something that never really existed, because at that moment, this is where you stand, this is where you will be. That's what I felt like happened at that moment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Venita, and in each of you, because it's what blew me away here is how Ben illustrates how, and that act, the instance, a coloniality is woven through that. The white male feeling as if he has access to that Black body, and that there is not much that she could do as a result of like this economic anxiety, the vulnerabilities, colorism, all of those things kind of impacting her positionality. And so, I mean, he's just so pompous, and of course, like father, like son, I mean, that mentality is passed down. And so, her body exists. So I go back to when she talks about being a tour guide and the white man is the tourist and her body is that terrain, right? So her body exists for their pleasure at will. But yeah, I'm kind of like, Kim, I'm kind of like, if you're going to do this work, why do you care about if he says he loves you or not? Like, I mean, is that just a sign of naivete, or that, the author wants to remind us of how gullible Margot still is, even though she's performing this agency that she does not necessarily have? I'm not sure. But yes, certainly that scene gave me so much.
I think also, if you fast forward to the end of the chapter where she has gone to her mother seeking some approval, and and I think it's the last sentence of that scene with her mother where she's thinking, I don't even want Alfonso. All I want is to prove mama wrong. And so mama, who has been selling her daughter's ass since she was a teenager, mama, who has been telling her since a little girl, God no like ugly, and what is ugly is Black, and nobody's gonna want you. Why would a man like that want you? You're nothing, you nobody. So she's been. So I don't even know if she really did want Alfonso, or that the idea of him loving her just meant that her strategy of trying to capture this prize to take home to mama was working.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, let's delve deeper then. So if we look at number 2, which kind of goes deeper into that lunch scene, does anyone mind? Would anyone like to read number 2?
I can.
Okay, thanks, Leonie.
Notice how Dennis-Benn adds her voice to the rapidly growing conversation about equal pay and the wage gap. Consider the Black feminist thread in Margot and Alfonso's conversation. Alfonso asks, "What do you want, Margot?" "A promotion," Margot replies, too loudly. Margot goes on to say, "I've seen other people get promoted. I'm tired of lying in bed with you, feeding you ideas that you use without giving me credit." Let's get personal and have a come to Jesus moment about promotions, fair wages, and equal pay. A. Briefly discuss how this conversation impacts or has impacted your life. In other words, have you ever, metaphorically of course, been in that bed that Margot describes? What happened? What did you do? B. Let's look at the other side of the coin. Have you known someone who has felt that she should have been promoted, but despite her brilliance, she did not receive the promotion? While that person might have felt like she was discriminated against, you felt as if was not the case. Share that story. In other words, when some Black women fail to get promoted, what might be holding them back?
Well,
I
first
saw
of all,
Venita's look. Go ahead, Venita.
But first of all, you don't go to bed with your boss. You lost some leverage right there. Now, contrary to popular belief, some women may think they've gained leverage. I believe that you lost your leverage right there. So I don't even know where Margot's coming from at this point. Her whole idea was to lay up with this man, was to make sure that she got, although they say Thandi, they drop the H as they always do, to be able to afford for her to go to the school and whatever the case may be. I just don't know what's on Margot's mind. I have known a couple of women in my lifetime that have done the same Margot thing. And for some ungodly reason, and I'm not even religious, they really believed in their hearts that this was going to give them more leverage. I've also known women that have gotten promotions or should have gotten promotions, Black women, that haven't gotten them. And depends on what time you're talking. I've been working since 1978. I watched the white girls get promotions all around me. You had to work 10 times as hard to even get a quarter of the way. And today, I really haven't seen a hell of a lot change, because when I turn the television on, I see the CEOs, like probably 90% or more, are white women. I see the upper management are white women. When I look at the stock market, I see the white women at the desk. I mean, so it's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell then and now why there are women that are qualified or think they're qualified, and some I believe are qualified, that aren't getting promotions. Nothing much has really changed. But Margot's on a whole different, over here somewhere. Because he wants her for that. That is her purpose. He made that clear. He makes that clear. So I don't understand where she even got the idea from. This is, that is why that's it.
Because she tried to show him her folder of ideas in that first meeting.
Yes. And he's like, no, I don't want to see that folder. I want to see what else you got up in there. Okay. And if she was interested in further her career, she'd have kept pushing that folder on him instead of pushing that bunkie.
That's the truth. That's the truth, Venita. That's
you know what I'm saying?
Yes. I think too, there's definitely, I think like this book brings up like, it's diaspora, Black diaspora, and these complexities And it brings it to the forefront that, ultimately, Black women, regardless of where we're located or positioned, we meet a glass ceiling. And it is so unfair. And it is so unfair again. And I don't know how to keep having the conversation in feminist circles, hence what we're seeing in Hollywood, about, which is an extension of Me Too, the silence around sexual harassment, because positions are tied to this, family support. And going back to Oprah Winfrey's speech, which, there's been some criticism, but when Oprah talked about those women who are working class and lower class, who could not leave, they had to support families, they had to raise children, those invisible and erased voices from this that are critical to this movement that we will probably never really hear in the mainstream. Their stories those narratives don't make it to the mainstream. But what happens, and we look at what's going on with women like that, and then the flip side is we do see white women progressing at astronomical rates. Right? So how do we, I don't know. That's why I don't know if I necessarily call myself a feminist. I know that, white women can't, stake ownership of that term, but perhaps it's why I like to call myself a womanist more so, because color will always taint a race, and being racialized taints that solidarity. So I'm not sure. But Kim, I know Kim was in corporate a long time, but Kim, did you also have you had that experience where women will feel, and namely Black women, I want to center Black women, have felt like they've been discriminated against, but the reality is maybe sabotage or something else is going on as to why they don't. Have you ever been in a position where you've had to kind of explain to another Black woman, okay, wait, here's why you're not necessarily promotable yet?
I'm trying to think. The only thing that comes to mind is myself. I had been promoted to vice president, and I was so excited because it was such a powerful team. Like there were consultants and everybody there to support you in doing what we were doing. And then the second I got the job, all of the support left. It was as if I was shocked by that. I thought that I was signing up for something and I would have all the resources that my predecessor had, but I did not. And when I mentioned this to my manager, she felt that it was grounds for me to be terminated, for me to think that I couldn't do the job. And I thought that I would have support doing the job the same way the white young lady before me had this whole team of marketing people and consultants, and everybody came. And I loved it because we all sat in these meetings and brainstormed, and what do they say? Measure twice before you cut. So I thought that would be available to me. And when it wasn't, I started to spiral. And so I'm just amazed at how it's still this bridge called my back. So when the customer started to complain that the quality of work had suffered, it was all my fault. Everything was my fault, not that the whole dynamic had changed. And so I actually thought that I was going to have the same resources as everybody else. I really did. Well, I learned that lesson. So I don't know. I don't know. And they were all this tight bunch of colleagues that it was real hard to break into that. It was just very hard to break into that. And I'm not this Ivy League kind of, I was extremely polished in corporate America, but it was a difference. And I think that when I was climbing the stairs, it was so much easier. I had no idea that I would hit that ceiling so hard. So I don't know if that answers the question, but and that was women did that. White that was more white women than white men. But you got to get over it and keep moving, And that's why I love the idea of having our own. I just think it's so necessary to have your own companies, your own, even if it's just a little Frank stand on the corner.
Wow, that is powerful, Kim. My goodness. Wow.
I believe many times they set us up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's get real about it. And you're not just dealing with white women, you're dealing with white women and women. The whole mentality. So you deal with a whole bunch of shit, excuse the expression, at one time. Let's face it, we got a lot of stuff with us.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of folks that's jealous of that stuff that's so fabulous with us. So you're dealing with the Ivy League crap from the white women themselves, the jealousy themselves. So many times I really do believe, as you said, they pulled all the resources away from you, that we're actually set up for failure. We're very capable.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
But once we get there, they set us up for failure because we're a threat. We really are a threat to them. And I don't want to get into the Me Too campaign. If I hear one thing more about the Me Too.
I do want to say this, which I found was equally hard, was that I was not supported by Black women.
Well,
that there was a point that I had excelled above the norm, and at that point, they became hard to. Two of them in particular that I went to bat for. It turned out that it was not worth it. It was too costly. So
wow.
And then there were sisters who were outstanding, But I was just amazed by how we feel sometimes that it's only room at the top for one, so you got to pull that one down so that you can get up there. And like Venita's saying, I'm being set up for failure, and you now need to come and pick the bones. Come on, come on.
Yeah,
wow,
but I kicked ass. I wasn't no punk. I tell you that much.
You can't be.
Wow.
That
is powerful. That is truly powerful. Hi, Gio.
Hey, how's everybody? Sorry I'm late.
Hi. No problem. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Georgette Moses. I'm joining you guys from Columbia, South Carolina.
All right.
All right.
Welcome. And Georgette, you did get the word that we were on for 5:30 tonight, right? You realized that?
Yeah, I did. I just got phone calls at the last minute from everybody.
No problem.
Like, I got book club. Leave me alone. No.
No problem. We're just glad to
so
see you.
from now all the way through March 13th. We're on break next week, but the meetings after that are all going to be at 5:30, and then at March 20th we'll go back to 6:30.
Okay, that's cool.
That's cool.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, well, we're moving right along. If there are no additional comments, so we could go to number 3. And again, I gave an A, B, and a C, but just pick and choose there. Let's see, Venita, do you mind reading number 3 for us, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Thandi is quite the character in chapter 8 and 9. Like many teenagers, Thandi seems to be on the brink of a hell of a rebellious streak. A, why is Thandi's rebellion significant? What does it represent? B, the water. As we all understand the beauty and the danger of water, in literature. Were you impressed by the author's description of Thandi's near drowning? How would the novel read differently if Thandi had drowned? Wow. Z. Was Thandi's encounter simply a near drowning, or can we read this as a baptismal ritual? If so, I lost my place. If so, predict how life will change for the boom again, Thandi?
Born again.
Excuse me?
Born again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Born again. Beg your pardon. Can't see. Gotta get the glasses. I'm trying to act like I can. I'm trying to act like I can see. And this is the whole game of stuff, like Margot. You know, trying to convince yourself that you can see stuff that you can't see. Stop laughing, Nicole. Because you young.
That's okay, Venita. You're good. You're good. Any takers?
Well,
I think that oftentimes you hear of teenagers being rebellion because they're trying to like discover who they are, to discover themselves or something. But I think with Thandi, I think it's more, her rebellion's more significant because she hasn't been allowed to really discover who she is. It's like rebellion, it takes the strength of rebellion in order for her to be able to even step into herself because she's been put into this box. You know, from the time she was born, she's the family's hope.
Yeah.
And anything that takes her out of that, and we see that with the response to the drawing, is it has to be suppressed. So it's not the usual teenage rebellion, I think, in that way, because she's had such a limited exposure to what freedom and discovery look like.
Oh, that's beautiful, Leonie. So I'm thinking about what you're saying. So with everything being suppressed, sensuality and her creativity, all of those things, and we know about suppression and creating a repressed subject. So somewhere it comes back out. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh.
I guess for me, I like what Leonie is saying too. I wonder when you say rebellion, from whose point of view, because I can see the mother and the older sister feeling like she's rebelling, but I think she's just attracted to a boy. I just, she likes art and she likes this boy. It's not like, she's going out smoking reefer and trying to get high and go to parties at night. And then when it gets dark, she says to him, "Oh, look at here! I got to protect my reputation. I got to go." So she's still on the straight and narrow for the most part. But I think the whole scene about her almost drowning was so beautifully written. The fact that there's this slave woman that drowns people that's out there. You get in the water, she's coming for you. I like that. I did. I just love that allow us starting to talk about our rage and how that rage comes out and pulls others down with it. So I thought that was, even though it wasn't a pretty scene, it wasn't a sweet scene, but it was still very, very powerfully written. And what would have happened if the girl had died? Oh my God. That's a whole different book. Oh my goodness gracious.
Right.
Wow. Nicole, that's just powerful. I don't know. I'll stop there, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I love what you're saying, Kim, because she creates that intertextuality. So you're bringing a slave narrative into this contemporary literature, right? So the echoes of the past are present, and then like the question that we all have to kind of reckon with at some point on our journeys, when our hope is attached to another individual, whether that's, a parent, a sibling, whomever, a spouse, and that individual is no more, exists no more in this realm, then what happens? I don't know. I don't know what would have happened to this story if Thandi had drowned. Like, obviously, I understand why she can't drown, right? Because, yeah, it's too much. You got to that's a foil to Margot. So she needs to stay alive at this point. But, man, how would this text have read? Would Dolores even, like, what would her mourning? Like, Dolores is such that emotional wall. Like, I just even wonder, what would mourning look like for Dolores? What would mourning, how would it appear? How would it be represented textually for Margot as well?
You think they would? I think they would blame poor Thandi and call her the fool.
I don't know. Dolores is really dead inside. And I don't know if I could even expect any expression or anything or mourning from Dolores. I believe it would set Margot free because they're enslaved to each other. Thandi and Margot are enslaved to each other, and they're both enslaved to Dolores. And I would like to have seen, unfortunately, Thandi would have been gone, but she wasn't trying to make it anyway because she couldn't swim and she jumping in that water. I said, girl, you're crazy. But meanwhile, I think the story would have been interesting still to see what Margot would have done. Although she loves her sister, and I'm sure the mourning would have been deep with her life. Automatically, opportunities or freedom would have come to her. So I don't even know if Verdi would have been, she might have been a bye-bye. I mean.
That's powerful, Venita. Yeah, that's powerful.
But Thandi didn't die.
No.
She lived.
She didn't.
Saved by a boy. A boy who, is the first person to compliment.
I can't hear you.
Her. The first person to compliment her art. And
Michelle, we can't hear you. You're breaking up.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I was saying, Thandi didn't die. She was saved by a boy who complimented her art and is maybe the really one of the only people who's done that. The art teacher who tried to crush her dreams, he acknowledged her art, but he was at the same time that he was crushing her dreams. When Charles does it, it's like without an agenda, just genuine. And so to me, it seems very clear at this point that this is the beginning of a love story for Thandi. And, so I think it's interesting. All of the men that we've seen so far Horace the John, Alphonse hotel manager, Ossifels' father who abandoned the family for an American woman. You know, all of the men that we've seen so far have basically pretty shady. And so you know, I think it's interesting to introduce this, just a nice young man. And the beginning of a heterosexual relationship in the midst of been reading as a lesbian story up until this point. So I think it's the beginning of a contrast between the two sisters.
Oh yeah, that's powerful. Absolutely. The heteronormative narrative, that's sense. Okay. All right. Anyone else, or we can go on to number 4. Okay, so for number 4, you know, y'all know I'm really interested in Black girlhoods and Black girlhood studies, so I really did just want to stick with Thandi, and so I said, let's continue to unpack the complexity of Thandi's coming of age, because of course I'm captivated by it. But anyway, so A, Thandi has been warned. The expectation is for her to marry well, but she appears to be smitten by Charles, a commoner. Why does Dennis-Benn place Charles in the story? What might the construction of this character reveal about Black feminism? B, let's delve into some hypotheticals. Tyler Perry plays and movies notwithstanding, can we parse the invalidity or validity of the anxiety that Margot and even Thandi herself feel about the possibility of Thandi marrying a man like Charles? And then C, given that notions of Black women settling and so-called marrying beneath them seems to be a popular mass media trope, what are your thoughts? What do Black women gain and or lose in such situations? And I'm thinking in particular about the statistics that we keep accessing that says that Black women are like one of the most educated groups. And so being partnered and then juxtaposing that to other statistics that say we don't necessarily marry outside of our races, of our race as, you know, as frequently as Black men do, even though we know that typically you're going to have Black women and Black men partnering. And that's very heteronormative, I will say. So looking at like a heterosexual dynamic there. But yes, I was just thinking about that contrast and just wanted to know what do you all think about this kind of this idea of marrying beneath someone?
Well, one thing is, I think it was interesting that Thandi found herself. She felt connected to this boy, despite her programming to look down on him. And so I think my note in the margin was something about, do we think it's natural to be connected to people of the same color? Is there something different going on with that versus the Black-white dynamic that we see Margot dealing with? So in terms of your question, be the anxiety that they feel about the possibility. Well, I think I would say it's an invalid anxiety, in that the likelihood, and maybe this is me looking at it from my first world lens, but it seems like the likelihood is that she would end up with a guy like Charles. And I don't know, Nicole. You do this to us all the time, but we have to go so deep to try to pull it up. But given the track that she's on, the private school education, the trying to lighten her skin, to get into another class, I can also see how that could easily lead to marriage to a white man, or easily lead to marrying a non-Jamaican, male or female. But so there's sort of a disdain, a self-hate, depreciation of her own culture going on, that I do think can lead you in different directions. It's interesting to me, and I do wish at some point that you guys would go back and read At the Dark End of the Street, even though I'm sure you know the story already. But that was primarily about the situation of white men raping Black women and girls, physically going into neighborhoods, pulling children out, raping them, leaving them by the side of the road. And so it's a continuation of the rape story from slavery. And so it's just interesting to me to look at this story where a Black woman is voluntarily having sex with white men, for the financial gain, and Thandi, a Black woman, is hesitant, not necessarily about getting involved with a Black man, but with a poor Black man. It's just I wonder what we think is progress.
Oh, that's deep, Michelle. Wow. What do we think is progress? Wow.
Yeah.
Anyone else? And you know what? I think I should have held off on the term marrying. I think dating would even be appropriate, just this notion of just, someone's standards.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here. And the image of this society or this community looks to me like, there's no real upward mobility for any of them, because either you're going to sell yourself, whatever you have. Alfonso says, what are you good for? Show me what you're good for. That's the question that each one of them is being asked by their, the trials in their life. Show me what you're good for. but they're still all facing, this ceiling, and it's impenetrable. Even those who you have to leave to find, you know, at self-actualization, or what am I worth? I'm worth something, but not much here in this land where they've taken our livelihood from us. So now, so like the one woman who, what she used to scale fish, well now she has to make up dangerous concoctions, and ride on the backs of the fears and hopes of the women, that by changing your outward appearance to lighter skin, this is how you you get out of this mess. But it's not. So yeah, I think that little period of normalcy, that's a period of normalcy for Thandi and Charles, that interaction. This is what it should be like for you. So she leaps into the water, she takes a chance, the water is described, the history which Kim talked about, pregnant, whatever the lady's name was, because she threw herself in the water because she was raped by the master. She didn't want the baby, but the water was also their life. The village, the community, that was their livelihood, but it was turned into tourism. What is it? I forgot the term. It's capitalism built on catastrophe. If there's not a catastrophe, they make one. And so now it's tourism, still controlled by someone else and not the people. So the leap into the water, and I'm going back to your other questions, I know, was rebellious. I'm taking a chance. I haven't been prepared for life. I haven't taken those lessons. I haven't gone because my mind was so closed. It was on the track. I had those blinders on, but I'm taking this chance in the water, almost drown. But in that process, here's some normalcy. Here, Charles comes to save me. What is really valuable in this community, I think, is represented by Charles. He's brown. His face, when she sees him, she goes to paint, sketch him. His face is illuminated by the sun. That's how the people should be. But instead, they're afraid of the sun. They're in the shade. Everything is Margot's interaction with Alfonso in the beginning. What's the song? 96 degrees in the shade, okay? Because the shade is not good for you, okay? It's telling you something. So I just thought that was, really just really deep how she intertwines the environment to represent what's going on with the people. Because, when we're at our best, we're connected to our environment. And when our environment is violated, then the people can't grow, They're dysfunctional all over the place. And it's represented in the lives of all of these women and even the men. So, and there was a comment she made, where the men, I forget if it was Margot or the taxi driver, what's his face, the Rastafarian, they don't, it was in reference to, they don't marry, legally. You just common law, you just hook up, okay? And he had children everywhere. So here's another reflection of colonialism and slavery. How do they break free from that when their lives are based, they can't survive without, this master, you know, dribbling out, the benefits, the food, the resources, the power. Their power is cut off. How do they get power? They're their shack. They have to illegally hook it up, and then that's not even reliable. So, which also represents, okay, Margot and her believing that, oh, because I'm having sex with, the hotel owner, I'm going to get electricity. I'm going to get a promotion, but that's not reliable because it breaks down, right? So she's got very, a lot of imagery in here that's really very deep. If we want to go there, very, very depressing. Oh, what a shame. That's all I got.
Yeah, and
that was beautiful.
Along that same line, Georgette, the whole story that they tell of hopelessness about, I think it was Little Bank, but that was the town that has already been taken over by tourists, and the people fought and, stood in front of cranes and did all kinds of things to try to prevent it, to no avail.
Yes.
Similarly, that's happening in Puerto Rico right now.
Yes.
Yes, we know from history with other Iowans that they don't want to do anything for Puerto Rico. All the white elitist, wealthy men are all sitting around salivating at the mouth, have already made plans, as they had before this even happened, to go in and make this white metropolis.
Yes.
Like, everyone's raving about Cuba. Who's raving? The white folk. It was their playground. Okay?
Yeah.
So the same thing happened in Jamaica. And like I said, if you know the history, it's even in, and not to go off track, even in the Congo, when they actually obtain their freedom, it's like the white folk don't just leave.
Right.
They destroy everything and say, here you go. You want your freedom? We're going to tear everything down. That's what they did in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And then here you go. Now, so it's very sad.
I'm glad you bring that up, Venita, because that is the hidden or indirect character in this text, is the that IMF, that International Monetary Fund. So and the debt. And so it is to, again, another form of enslavement, and how similar their lives, can be, even though we are, living in the so-called first and more developed nation. But similar, our experiences can be, in the sense that slavery is just reinvented here in America as well. The difference is where they have the kind of, they've been displaced in kind of these rural residential structures. We could have housing projects, but nevertheless, you have people attempting to share space who are extremely oppressed, and it's just very difficult to overcome. So wow, that is very. I'm so happy you brought that up, to the forefront here as well. That debt, that's the other hidden figure here. Here we go with the words hidden figure. Hidden figure is the debt that this nation, it has been crippled by
intentionally.
Intentionally, and it's fictitious.
Yeah.
They're going to make, remember, they're medical apartheid. They're going to make money off our backs.
Yeah.
No matter
That's right.
what.
No matter
one
what.
form of slavery or another. And this is what also is taking place in Jamaica, Panama, you name it, same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you all yeah, you're right. Do you all feel like, when I have watched the Tyler Perry movies, and it's almost like a chastising professional Black women, like, oh, well, see, that's why you're lonely now, because, the average Joe Blow, it's almost like this chastising, this thread. Like, well, he was a common man, a working class, good working class guy. He might have his braids and not established in your professional circles, but no, you too up high and mighty. And it's almost, I don't even know how to take those movies now, because I do kind of see it, those movies, even though, like, there's this catch-22, they give a lot of Black actors and actresses an opportunity to make money, but on the opposite hand, their economy is connected to a disciplining and punishing Black women and Black women's bodies. And so, and even like in specific circles, like I'll see some of my former classmates on Facebook sharing memes, and these are men who, have kind of done, I'm not trying to pass judgment, but men who, probably weren't the one that everybody, a woman wanted to pick, the first pick and so these memes that I sometimes see these men spreading that say like, but this is why you're lonely. I think for me, there's something going on with the construction of Thandi and Charles, and this notion of her being educated and in these privileged circles, which is already a socialization process, right? Because it keeps so many people out. But and then another conversation about marriage material. When we think about what Brittany Cooper talked about in the last book in the Crunk Feminist Collective, being partnered, the more ambitious a Black woman is. And I don't know, I'm just thinking that, there is a conversation to be had there that the book brings to light.
Yeah, I think those are all really excellent points. When I was thinking about these questions, I was like, this idea of like commoners or whatever. One of the things that I was thinking, well, something that occurred to me is that like in societies that are as repressed and regressive as hers, and I would also say I would put those labels on America as well for African Americans. Being with someone at your level actually means that you're falling back. It means that things are actually going to get worse for you. And I think that, so I think that's one thing in terms of where the risk is. If she were to be with somebody like Charles, it could be totally fine. It could be better than ever. It could also end up pulling her back. And it's probably much more likely to do the latter. And then the other piece around people date. Were you saying something, Venita?
No, you made me think when you said that. And I said,
Because, I don't know. We just, sorry. And then I wanted to talk about like the dating, the outside people like from outside the race or whatever. One of the things that I'm aware of is that people often date outside their race for relief, whether it's from racism or just because they don't fall in line with a certain kind of mentality. And that can, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine who's a Black man, and we were having a conversation about why he's attracted to whiteness. And it is because everything that's associated with his background, which is West Indian, he finds incredibly repressive. And he knows this. It's not like he's unaware. It's not like he's guilt-free for being attracted to whiteness. But it's like the idea of being stuck in the role of a West Indian man is not something that he can bear.
So he's kind of able to cross boundaries, you're saying? Like he can transgress those boundaries by having a white partner?
Yeah, because he can't, because he was describing how like he goes to his white partner's family, like, for the holidays or whatever, and how there's like this sense of ease. When he's with his own family, there's just, their colonial mindset is too much to bear.
Wow.
I can understand that for sure.
Right?
Yes. I agree. I understand that. It can be too much to bear.
Something deep there, yeah.
Because he can see it. He can see it, and they don't see it. And in seeing that there's a colonial mindset, it's too repressive. It's too much.
Is that not
Yeah.
sort of kind of what's going on with Verdine as well? Which is why Verdine is kind of like, okay, worship your Christian colonial God, because when you eventually, that's the understanding, even though, yeah, that's a slippery slope there. But Verdine also looks at these people as trapped in this colonial mindset as well.
Well, Nicole, we can go from one part of this country to the other and feel like we're trapped in a colonial mindset.
Yes.
I can leave Connecticut and go to my family in North Carolina and feel like I'm trapped in a colonial mindset.
Yeah. And what do we gain as,
and I have.
and that I like that, Venita, because if we start talking about, I've been reading this book and it talks about the Americas as a new world colony. What do Black Americans gain if we start using that terminology to see ourselves as well as dealing with the residue of colonialism? And if we start thinking about America and naming America as a new world colony, what
That's fascinating.
Do we then does the practice of diaspora then become more even? Do we start losing those imperialistic lenses that we sometimes employ? I'm thinking about in the Feminist Collective when she's talking about those pictures when she goes to India, and how she even has to notice how she's positioned inside and outside. So if we start thinking of this as a new world colony, we are also the colonized.
That's right.
What does that do?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, because it makes me think of like Native Americans who have no interest in being Americans.
At all.
They don't give a shit.
That's right. That's right.
And that's a
That's
positionality that's available to Black people.
That's so true. That's so true. And we've been fighting for this kind of the blessings of so-called spiritual, I'm sorry, the blessings of citizenship for such a long time. Right. Well, you all want to close out with journeys? We have about 7 minutes, and I'm so happy to kind of let, because I don't want to over talk here. So, like, just whatever, however you feel. I was just looking at for number 5. I just thought it was so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I've got to meet her. Okay. I have got to attend an author talk. But I thought it was just so beautiful. I keep hearing professors say, show, don't tell, but show. And she does this so beautifully. And like Gio said, the imagery here. But I was just stunned by the words after Charles saves Thandi, and the author writes, Thandi feels exposed. Like 3 words that I just honed in on, but they're so powerful. What does it mean to announce that someone feels exposed? And what does it mean to kind of have that all knowing, that awareness, as a narrative voice, that she feels exposed? And I was just asking, because y'all know I'm just personally interested in journeys and quests. And so I was just wondering, if you think about your own personal quests, what does it mean for you to feel exposed? And we can close out.
Well, I think one thing for me, being exposed means allowing yourself a certain vulnerability. We all have our mask, our protective shields that we, allow people to know things we don't want people to know. And so when you're exposed, it's kind of all out there, like Margot's ass. And, Margot, for example, thinks that nobody really knows the little side hustle that she's got going on at the hotel. And then at the moment that Alfonso has finished with his nasty sex, throw away his condom. The guard comes in, and her ass is exposed. And so to me that's what the word conjures for me. People knowing or having the capacity to know things that you may not want them to know. It's vulnerability. It's being a little bit out of control.
Wow, that's beautiful, Michelle. Yes. Anyone else?
I'll go quickly because I have to drop off the call.
Okay.
When I read this, I kind of felt like, because I feel a little exposed now in terms of opening myself up to seeing what's actually there in my life. And yeah. So I think that's part of it. There's like there's a lot of like unpacking and testing things out and seeing what's there to be discovered. And one of the things that I've become really aware of is that like there is this there's a lot of systems that like that I feel like are running counter to where it is that I want to go, and that it's a constant like there's a constant need to like show up fully. It's like a choice that I have to make like moment by moment, because I can't just wake up in the morning and be like gung ho, because it'll be gone like within 55 minutes. It'll be over with. But it's that need to like, for me, it's about like staying in touch with myself and kind of being with myself, like in friendship with myself, to like walk through a day and eventually a week and eventually a month and eventually a life, like with care.
Oh, Leonie, that's poetry. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Oh, thank you for that. Wow.
Thank you. I wish I could stay to hear the rest of them, but I want to be on time for my next meeting. So thank you again, women.
Bye, Leonie.
Bye-bye.
I think for me, when I hear the word exposed, it means two things. One, that I have people who I can actually expose to the healing work that I do. And then when I'm with other people, it's none of their business. So it's not seeping out in odd ways because I have a community that I can be transparent with. So I don't have to be transparent with everybody, but I do have communities, where I can be transparent. And I'm very discerning about where to be exposed in that way. But the other part of exposure is stepping out and being bold with my gifts and my talents and not worrying about what comes from shining. That when you allow yourself, like I had an event Sunday, and I sang to this woman because I just wanted to thank her for always coming to sing to us. And I was exposed. I was so exposed that I was in a spirit of, I didn't care. I wanted this sister to know how much I cared for her. And then when people kept coming over and saying, I didn't know you could sing, that I wanted to stop. So that's what I struggle with, is how to push past that fear of exposure.
Mm. Wow, that's beautiful, Kim. Wow.
Thank you, darling.
Mm. Georgette, Venita, anyone else?
Well, echoing what Kim, Leonie, and Michelle said, well, exposure has two faces. Either you allow yourself to be vulnerable and you show something that you've kept hidden, or the shield, the curtain is actually ripped away from you in some moment you hadn't planned, and now you have to deal with the consequences. Yeah, that happened. Okay, let's move on. so, so um, I think that line in the text where Thandi feels exposed, she is young. What does she know? She knows what people have been putting in her head. She really doesn't want to learn what she's learning in school. So this physical moment that she's with Charles, these are things she's never experienced before. She's been wrapped up with, saran wrap and some goop under sweatshirts and starched up, uniforms. What has she been able to feel? And I think one character is interesting in the story, and I'm just now connecting it, is the grandmother who sits on the porch. She says nothing. She looks up into the stars. Who is that character? Now she's really exposed, okay? She's like, I don't care what's going on around me. You're coming, you're going. What's up? I'm looking at the stars. I'm still alive. I'm grateful. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, that's beautiful, Gio. Oh my gosh. Those minor characters sometimes have the most pivotal roles and meanings, the symbolism. That is so beautiful. Wow. Wow. I'm going back to her now. Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. For me, I'm going to be turning 40 next Sunday. I turned 40 Sunday.
February the 18th.
February 18th. Yes, thank you, Venita. And so I think this struck like a chord because I think looking back, my late 30s, I was reacting to being exposed or feeling as if I have been exposed. And it was one of those moments, Georgette, that you so beautifully described, where, you can either do it willingly or they're curtain jobs, and so it's like, okay. But I could honestly say that, oh, this is what 40 must mean. This is now I have different, like there's a different level to, even when I read my favorite quote by Octavia Butler, when her name, I can't remember her name right now, but when she says, I'm teaching myself how to fly. And, and I'm like, okay. So that vulnerability intertwined with me feeling exposed, that is a critical component of me teaching myself how to fly. And so at every, like there's these, it's so interesting because at different levels, I felt exposed. And I've noticed that when I resist, that I notice what happens in my life and then when I juxtapose when I've let go and surrendered, and how much better and easier and much more beautiful life has become. And that's where I'm going. So I'm like, okay, for the next 40 years or however long it's okay for me to feel exposed. It's even okay to be exposed because, my ethics are aligned with my actions. So even that is okay. But
go ahead.
And where and where I'm ultimately going is I understand that I'm on a spiritual journey, and I promise, like I told myself, I'm going to start, like I keep meeting spiritual guides, like I can't even like put it all in words, but these people who come from different faith backgrounds, but oh my gosh, they have poured into so richly and warmly into my life. And it has ultimately, helped me grow and help me fly. So anyway, I think that's why that resonates with me, feeling exposed. All right, Venita,
Wow.
take us home. Come on, Venita, because she's deep.
Yes.
I can relate to Thandi a lot. With my own life, kind of parallels hers in a lot of ways. I remember growing up. Of course, Michelle has been my friend, a best friend, since the first time I saw Pat Bougie. We were 12 years old, and Michelle knows a lot about my life. Michelle knows I pretty much lived two lives simultaneously. Coming down to Trenton, New Jersey, in a not so cool place where I live, and then going on the other side to my godmother's house and godfather's house, which her birthday is on your birthday. That's why I remember it so well. And she lived in Philadelphia, Society Hill. So I was always living these dual lives. I had to come back down this, but even go up in Philadelphia, come back down to South Philly and be able to do, bam, and then go back over to Society Hill in Center City, where I was going to the Nutcracker Suite. I was taking ballet lessons. I was going to charm school. And I lived that life all my life. And I think I felt exposed. And it carried on because then there were certain expectations that were put on me by my family. And it carried on. And when I had children, I felt like I was expected to, it was that expectation, it was still there. And then finally, after my children became adults, that's when I felt exposed. Because I didn't feel the need to do it anymore. I was able to say the reason why I am who I am, because this is what was going on, where I had never, ever told anyone. And of course, the only person that really knows me in that way or knows me well is Michelle, which is, of course, 40-something. How long have been Michelle? 119 years and 22 days.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, the only time I really don't feel exposed is when I talk to my best friend. Even if I am exposing, I don't feel exposed.
Wow, that's beautiful. Ooh. Oh, Venita, I've got to write that down. You said, even if I am exposing, I don't feel exposed. Wow.
I don't feel exposed.
Ooh.
And she is the only person I can actually say that on this earth, that I really, and that's among everyone, whether it's spouse, whether it's children, whether it's college, that even I expose myself, I don't feel exposed.
Wow.
Well, thank you.
That's
because I love you. Most of the time.
I was thinking it was
we fight occasionally, Nicole. We do fight occasionally, but not that bad. Once
I understand.
That's not even a fight.
I understand that. Venita, are you an Aries?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And Michelle, yeah, she's an Aries. That's a Sag over there.
Oh.
I'm the one that's
fire.
And she's the one. Hey, Sada. Let me stop and pick a dandelion. I'm like, she's like, what's the rush? I'm like,
oh my God.
And then she goes like this, and I go like, that's when we don't call each other for a couple of days. We have enough right now.
Oh my goodness.
Well enough to know let's calm down.
Yes, calm down. And the funny thing about it is that when we come back together, ain't no mention of it because like some people say, "Well, I apologize." We never did. We said, "How you doing?" How was your day?
Cool.
How you feel, Michelle? You know your appointment? How you doing?
I love
and it's just never like, is that the way it is, Michelle? We just had that moment, and the moment's gone. So we don't even like it's over there somewhere. Anyway, how you doing?
That's so beautiful.
Unless it's the I can't stand you. Well, I can't stand you.
Once in a while we critique each other.
Oh, I like the way you said that.
And Michelle said, "Well, you just think that you did," and I'm like, "That's what you think." And then we get right back down. So how you doing?
That's how
we throw that shade, girl, but it's real shade.
That's how you do
it. To actually throw it and throw it hard and don't make a difference. It just
bang.
Yeah. Everyone needs.
Well, guys, I'm gonna have to jump off. It was a pleasure tonight. Thank you, Nicole.
Oh,
good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, Kim. Have a great week.
Loved it. Bye, everybody.
Yes, loved you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Anyway,
my
Nicole,
goodness.
I had to give you a laugh tonight.
Oh, thank you. That's why I said, Venita, I said, take us home. We love it. We love you. Take us home.
Yes, we do.
And Gio.
Oh, Gio was deep tonight. Oh, like she's always deep.
I'm like, well, you could tell she had a break because she came right back and Gio's back.
You know what? Tonight, Gio was like, get your notepads out. Come on, babies. Yeah. Y'all got to take some notes. She started. Whoa. Gio just did it tonight. She was straight in teaching mode. She was like, okay, and you know what? We missed the other characters. See? And look, oh yeah, that was wonderful, Gio. Thank y'all. This is wonderful.
I forgot about that until you brought it up. It's like
yes.
She just looked up at that sky. She didn't care what was going on.
Right. Yes. And then I was wondering, is she meditating?
Yes.
Yeah.
But if it's an island, going by my experience, she probably praying. She probably meditating and praying and say, Jesus gonna take care of it. I'm gonna let these people do what they do because He's gonna take care of it.
Yep.
But she's a silent character. I mean, physically, she has not spoken in years.
Yes.
See, and Michelle knows
stopped.
so much because Michelle knows that book. That's why I was almost hesitant to ask that question to predict because I'm like, see, Michelle knows more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
but
knows a lot, though. She
I'm
knows
not gonna.
everything.
I'm not gonna. I think I'm pretty good at not.
Yeah, you are. You're very good. I would have given it away by now, Michelle.
Not
I know.
totally.
That's why I went ahead. That's why I keep
But it's hard.
Michelle is good. Yeah.
It's hard.
Yes.
But I like to do it. If I have time to read the book before the circle starts.
Yeah.
Because it lets me do things like I did today. I don't know if you saw any of the pre-meeting posts that I did.
Yes.
It helps me be on the lookout for resources online that kind of go with the text.
Yeah.
I posted one young woman talking about why she would never, given the history, would never have sex with a white man, doesn't understand how we can do it. I posted
I heard that.
another one. There's a new book that's out today by the Feminist Press at CUNY. I think it's called How Mamas Love Their Babies. And it's looking at sex workers.
Yes.
Wow.
And making the point that, we the work that we do differs, but we're all coming from this same place of loving and needing to take care of our children. So there's so much going on in this book that it's really hard to catch it all, and it's hard to really be able to dissect it all.
Yes.
I'm so glad that we got to the gentrification theme that's going on, because that's pretty consistent through the story. There's just so much there, and I mean, I like it. I think it's what helps to make this the page turner, as you said, Nicole, and make it interesting. But I also think it makes it hard to really focus in on any one aspect of it, because it's just all so deep.
Yes.
But that's who we are. And it's the complexity that she builds into the story is the complexity of our real lives. Like that line where Dolores, where Margot says to Dolores, well, I guess, you just would rather put me with men who like to fondle and fuck little girls.
Yes.
That was heavy.
Yeah.
And then the mother says back to her, but what would you have had?
Right. Yes.
Didn't it put food on the table? Didn't it feed?
Yes.
And it was the dead. Feed the. So I think it really challenges us. Venita and I have since the beginning of the book group, a book doesn't go by where we don't start talking about how we would have killed ourselves doing slavery. Pregnant Heidi, Venita. We were pregnant Heidi.
Yeah.
And the book about the
I think the book is really challenging us to think about how do we see our choices? Are they really the only choices?
No.
Do we have a choice?
No.
Wow.
That section. It's the same story, but different actors always, but it's the same stories.
Yes.
And yes, for me, and I read that and I'm like, what would I have done? I damn sure wouldn't have sold my daughter. Now, if you, that's my job. But then I'm thinking about what would I have done? No, if I had to do it myself, that's another thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
I might have to do what I might have to do, Nicole, and tell you and do the Jesus thing later. You know.
Yes. Yes. That's what I'm saying.
I might have to do and go pray on it later or whatever.
Yes.
Or not pray on it. But the point is that when I
but Venita, Dolores was a big fat blackety black woman.
But somebody wanted.
White men would not slide in from Germany to fuck her.
But see, Michelle, why you gotta go there? Why you gotta go there, Michelle? Okay, I'm trying to figure out another way to get some food on the table, but you gotta go all up in here like.
Yeah, that's true. Wow.
This is the situation.
And I know
the situation.
Well, you know what? But I had to find me some white man that wanted a big girl.
And there probably was one. There probably was.
Absolutely.
I just that this, and when she turned around and said, "Yeah, 8 did you?" Oh, that did something to me. It's like you pick your child out, and then you turn around and said, "As awful as that is, I don't care how hungry you are." Then you turn around and say, "Yeah, 8 did you?"
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That is too heavy. That is just way heavy, Nicole. That just go way far. You know, I have to grow me some vegetables. We might be this minute to eat vegetables. We'll just grow vegetables. You know, we'll just eat vegetables. We don't need no meat. We'll turn to vegans. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Seaweed.
We got plenty of seaweed.
Absolutely.
But when she said that was just too much, it wasn't. And she's hard. She's very hard. Dolores, she's just hard. And I've seen that before, but she's very hard.
Yes.
And I know something's happened to her. Things have happened to her. If you're a black woman, stuff has happened to her.
Yes.
So I was thinking, what's happened to her?
Yes.
It's crazy to happen to her.
Yes.
To make her that hard.
Yes, I agree. And when that story unfolds.
Right, to pimp your daughter out so easily. And I don't think she's so easily because we had to eat. Something had to happen
trace
to her.
Of guilt.
Huh?
Was not a trace of guilt.
Right, no.
Yeah.
No, that's so true.
No, it's like, shut up. What you talking about? Girl, shut up. You ate. That's what
Yes. That's so true.
And we ate. And the sad part about it, not just you ate, we ate.
We ate, right. So the communal.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know.
And we're going to eat real well when Thandi, you know.
Right, finishes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Wow, that's powerful.
But it's harsh and it's ugly, but this really is the reality. That many people cross cultures are dealing with.
Yeah.
And today, as we sit here this evening, this is happening somewhere.
Yes.
Every second of the day. And that's what's scary about it, that it was happening 100 years ago, happened 50 years ago, happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago. It's happening.
That's right. Still happening. Yeah.
It's still happening.
Wow.
Right.
But anyways,
now
I start working up a sweat.
That's okay, Venita.
Well, I enjoyed everyone. And Michelle, I can't wait to the additional chapters on the 27th. I can't wait to learn more, as Venita said, about Dolores. Like I'm wondering, how is Dennis-Benn gonna pull more of Dolores' story? And I'm just shocked that just a week ago I was so focused on Verdine, and now my attention, has shifted. So wow, this is good storytelling.
It
That's a
is.
great
It
choice.
is.
Great choice.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so
Very
much for the
exciting.
wonderful questions, the thoughtful questions. They're so thought provoking. That was
Ah,
wonderful.
thank
Yes,
you as
absolutely.
well.
The
Good
summary and everything was
response.
just fabulous. That's why we elect you to do it
Mm-hmm.
every week now. You don't know it yet, Nicole, but happy birthday, girl. Happy birthday to
I received that, Venita. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
It's gonna be
cool.
you. Well, you
wonderful.
coming next
Wow.
week, Gio? We got the next Gio?
Yep. Uh-huh. I plan to be
Okay.
here. Mm-hmm.
All
Okay.
right. It's a
All right.
party.
We're
All
having a
right.
good time.
Yes.
Absolutely. Enjoy it always, ladies.
And we
Yeah,
have
Definitely, I
missed you
do.
so much.
Well,
So much.
absolutely.
oh God, we missed
Oh,
you. We missed you. We really
Absolutely.
have. And Michelle and I, we together. We always say, "Have you heard from Gio? Have you listened to him?"
Well,
I'm
And
yeah.
Michelle said, "No, I haven't
All
heard
right,
from him about
let me
these
just
young
stop.
things."
Y'all stay here, but let me stop the broadcast
Okay.
and
okay.
tell everybody we will see you in 2 weeks on February 27th.
Yes.
Our story together. Have a good week.
Good